Hey everyone, welcome back to the Film Fund podcast. I'm your host, founder, and executive producer at the Film Fund, Thomas Verdi. I'm also an award-winning filmmaker, producer, and film festival judge. I started the Film Fund to give filmmakers an easier, alternative way to get their films funded. Instead of working on a screenplay, crowdfunding campaign, or grant application, you write one sentence pitching your film for a chance to receive up to $10,000 and other prizes to make it. At the time of this recording, we just closed our spring 2022 narrative and documentary funding contests. Thank you to everyone who entered. And we're currently in the judging process. We actually just announced our most recent finalists. So check your email to see the final winners. If you're listening to this podcast at a later date, I want to remind you that we do host contests regularly. So if you are listening later, check the website at thefilmfund.co for the most up-to-date information to submit your pitch. You write one sentence for a chance to receive up to $10,000 to make your film. Today we have Miles Pasholk. I should have asked him how to pronounce his last name before I record, but that's okay.
That's good enough.
Miles, did I say that right?
Yes,
Good enough.
that's
All
good
right.
enough. Yeah.
Thanks so much. Miles is actually a multiple time winner, however you say that. He's won 2 contests now, the Kid Split gift cards to make his projects. Super exciting. He cracked the code, I guess, on how to win the Film Fund. We'll see if he can win any more. Miles, thanks so much for coming. Appreciate you making
Thank you
this
for
work,
having me.
especially with the technical difficulties we ran into a few minutes ago. But could you give us a brief intro about yourself?
Yeah. My name is Miles Pasholk. Um, I've been into film my whole life. I have a day job. And on the side, I try to write consistently, constantly, and as much in variety as I can. I typically work on 2, 3 projects at a time, but hard to get any of them off the ground to actually on the screen because I'm always the detail is more important than actually getting out there and filming things.
Mm.
So other than that, I've been writing quite a bit my whole life, and film is a big part of it. And without film, I probably wouldn't have anything.
Wow.
And besides all that, I mean, people like you brought this opportunity up, which just kind of gave me the encouragement, the sort of get up off my feet and do something. Which, unbeknownst to me, I didn't know my ideas were that original. Which I pride myself on thinking that they are, and
Yeah,
sure enough, 2 of which got acknowledged, and that
that's
much
awesome.
more makes me even more encouraged to get out there and get something done.
Yeah, I'm so glad you found us. I'm so glad you were able to get your projects submitted. And one thing, it sucks about our industry, and you always want to say like, you always want to have that inner confidence to just do it, right? And people, Nike, just do
Mhm.
it, and people motivation, all that good stuff. But sometimes you do need a little bit of external validation, especially in our industry, because it's just so competitive. So like when you do win something, it's like, oh, this idea actually maybe has legs. It means it's just so cool. It's so awesome. Like I've had that feeling before with film festivals and screenwriting contests, and it's just like, oh, actually, I'm a filmmaker. Like people actually do value what I'm doing, and that's not to say if you don't win the film fund, your ideas are crap. It's very competitive,
Right. No.
and you do,
Objective too.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it is subjective at the end of the day. It is a contest. So if you're listening to this and you're like, oh man, I wasn't picked, I should just give up. Don't do that. I'm just saying, like sometimes you
Hmm.
need a little validation, and it's cool to see that. How did you find us, by the way?
Let's see. Let's see. I've been putting in pitches every for. I think, shit. Sorry. Excuse me.
No worries, we can curse on this podcast. I just have to check a little box that says it's
Oh,
explicit or
okay.
whatever.
All right. I'll try not to. I think I did a general Google search looking for funding, like grants
Hmm.
and things like that. And I think the Film Fund, which not to say it's simple, it's catchy. It's right up
Hmm.
right in the forefront there. You look at it, go, oh, exactly what I'm looking for.
There you go.
Clicked on it. So it's just a basic Google search,
Cool. That's awesome to hear. That means
and
our SEO and digital marketing is working.
yep.
Sweet.
And
Those
then
are good.
yeah, clicked on it. And I'm sorry, but yeah, it was out of the norm. It's not one of those things that I thought that I can click on and just go, easy 1, 2, 3 steps. And sure enough, that's what it
Hmm.
was. and that kind of sets you guys apart from the bulk of contests out there, which I think is a good thing.
Thank you.
And it's accessible, and it's just not to say that in my case it was beneficial, but it definitely is for anybody out there.
Mhm, for sure. And what what is your day job that you mentioned? We like to look at the whole person on this podcast, not just like silo them into, oh, he's a filmmaker. Because I always think it's so
Mm.
interesting seeing people's full stories.
Well, I'm a I would call it a desk jerk.
Okay.
I sit at a desk quite a bit. Um, I work in the garage door
Okay.
field. Um, um, I would say the majority of my time though is spent in the office, putting out invoices, calling
Hmm.
customers, getting quotes, sending proposals, doing payroll, pretty much like that. But a good portion of the time though, I'm out in the field assisting with the technicians. Kind of a mundane work, but it's definitely um, much needed
Hmm.
in the industry. It's an
Very
important
cool.
work for people that
Is
need it.
uh is that your
So I've been doing that
yeah.
for quite a few years,
Wow.
about 10 years, and I wouldn't say it's my forte. It's
Yeah.
something I've been doing, so I made it easy just because
Hmm.
I stuck at it. I wouldn't say it's my
Yeah. No,
lifetime
I feel you.
my career choice, but it
Yeah.
is
Got
what
to
it
pay the
is.
bills. Got to make it happen. And you
Mm.
you see these film. I think Spielberg was a truck driver for before he.
Wrote
Or James
Terminator
Cameron
2
was a truck
during the
driver.
time,
My
I
bad.
think. Yeah, yeah. Anybody can be
Wow.
anything they want to be.
That's crazy. So yeah, yeah, we talk about film school a lot on this podcast, and we've had winners who've gone to film school, winners who have not gone to film school. I have not gone to film school, not yet anyway. I I keep saying I've decided not to. Like if you listen to previous episodes, like oh yeah, I think I might go, and I keep wavering. But
Well, I'm
anyway,
interested
not
in you
about me.
too. I mean,
That's super cool.
I thought people who set up things like this typically are more in the industry than the others. So like they would have a background, and then that's why they start this thing.
Yeah, so I I was in. It actually
Mm.
started as a class project in college. I was doing entrepreneurship track, a minor, and I had this. It was like two capstone courses for undergrad entrepreneurship, and the first course I did this thing called Surgeon Scope. It was a way to
Mm.
find surgeons, and if you needed orthopedic surgery, it would match you with a surgeon in a more personalized way than typically the
Okay.
process was. It was very medical, kind of clinical, um, and it was just
Mm.
very dry, very like boring. So the professor came up to me after the course was over. He gave me an A. And he goes, Tom, you had a great project, but for the next course, like the second capstone course, why don't you do something you're actually interested in? Why don't you do something you're actually passionate about? And I was like, okay, well, I love film. And at the time, um, I was an English major. I went to Lehigh. They have a film studies minor now, but they
Mm.
don't have a film production program. They may have a documentary program that does some production, but they don't have like a
Yeah.
film major really. Um, so I was just teaching myself screenwriting, kind of on the side, and I wrote this short script. Um, and it got into Holly Shorts as a semifinalist, their screenwriting contest. So I was super excited. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try to make this thing. So I was submitting to grants, I was submitting to contests, I was writing proposals, and it was long, time consuming. I met with grant committees at the school, and it was such a pain. Trying to raise
Mm-hmm.
funding for a short film is not easy. Um, so that same professor, he would also say to scratch your own itch, meaning when you're coming up with product or service ideas, like do something that you had experience. You could be your own customer, really. I mean, I can't
Mm-hmm.
with the film fund, but do something that's close to your heart and your interest. So I said, okay, well, maybe I'll try to solve, or not solve, but make funding short films a little easier. I'll offer an alternative process, and it started in that course. I ended up staying an extra year at Lehigh to get my master's in entrepreneurship and product development, and fleshed out a film fund a little bit more in that program. Still was working on my own filmmaking career. In
Mm-hmm.
tandem with that, I made that short film, Son of Blackbeard, and I've been writing as well, other projects, feature projects, other short films. I have one in post production called The Toms. We actually just wrapped post production, which I'm super excited about. So we're going to start submitting it. So yeah, I didn't go to film school. Um, I have my the graduate degree is technically an engineering degree. Lee has a big engineering school, so it was an entrepreneurship program, but it's a Master of, oh my God, I haven't had my coffee yet.
Uh,
It's an MEng, Master of Engineering and Technical Entrepreneurship, which is a mouthful and a little confusing, but basically product development, digital marketing, um, teaches you how to build and scale companies, which is exactly what I'm doing with the Film Fund,
well, as I often hear
and
when
working
people
on that.
say you want to get into the industry, it's best to have something to fall back on. So you're one step up there. You got an actual, yeah.
Yes, yeah. I you know, I'm very involved with the Film Fund doing the digital marketing. We have, freelancers and part-time people that we work with, but it's mostly me. I mean, you're
Hmm.
looking at the guy who does most of the operations, but I am looking at bringing on. We've had a digital content producer in the past. You may have heard me talk about
Hmm.
him, Tom, on maybe last year's podcast. Another Tom,
Right,
not
yeah.
me. I am looking at bringing on someone like that again pretty soon, just so I can focus more on my filmmaking career. But yeah, that's me. Kind of just self-taught. Um, I've, for the time being, ruled out film school just because it's so expensive
Hmm.
and time-consuming, and I wouldn't really be able to do the film fund and the things I'm working on while in school. But yeah, that's my background. I went to school, just started messing around with screenwriting software, got a little bit of traction, and then created a company, and here
Oh,
I am.
nice. Okay. Well, I mean, it's nice to know more about you. Uh, I
Yeah,
wanted to
thanks
ask
for
you though,
asking.
as far as when you write screenplays, the
Hmm.
biggest thing that I have is finding the time and being consistent, like
Yeah.
for so many hours a day, or at least one
Hmm.
consistent hour. How often do you actually?
Hmm.
I mean, with what you're doing here, you probably are limited on that. But
Yeah.
how often do you actually get to write? Being in
Hmm.
the industry, like doing this.
It's tough. I, yeah, it hasn't been much recently. The last thing I wrote was the Toms, that short film I just
Hmm.
mentioned. I've been trying to say every weekend I'm gonna dedicate like at least an hour to
Hmm.
writing. Um, I also have another writing project. I'm working on a book just about my entrepreneurship
Hmm.
journey, um, and life and all of that kind of stuff. So I I cannot confidently say I write consistently, which is bad. Um, but I am trying to write something every weekend, whether it's the book or working on the screenplay. That doesn't always happen. Maybe it's every couple of weeks,
Hmm.
but that's part of the reason I want to bring on um, another producer for the film fund to do a lot of digital marketing and content production, so I can have more time during the week to say, okay, like today I'm going to write, and I can actually dedicate that time to doing
Hmm.
so instead of assigning social media posts and assigning blog topics and doing SEO. So yeah, I struggle with writing consistently. It's tough.
I'm sure we all can say the same. Um,
Yeah.
but you only have those, few in the bunch that are just, how would you say it? They're mavericks. They have the time just
Hmm.
to get out there, or even you got your regular Godards. You don't need a script. Just go out there and film something. So,
Yeah.
which I kind of wanted to do in the beginning of my career, which I had done.
Hmm.
I didn't have anything, and we just had a camera, and we went out, we just
Hmm.
goofed around, we put some things together, and I would say that I don't know, so many odd years ago, we filmed a little something, and that it just stuck with me, and that
Hmm.
progressed over the years up until now, which we're up until the last year recently. That I thought I had the greatest idea, and I'm running on that. I'm writing
Yeah.
3, 4 different versions of it. I'm trying to write a short story,
Oh
which
wow.
I've submitted to the contest as well, and also
Hmm.
writing a
Very
writing a
cool.
book version of the same thing. So just
Oh, I love that. Like multi, what do you call it? Like
the
format,
novelization of the idea of
multimedia.
the movie yet to be
Yeah,
filmed, sort of thing. But
yeah. You got a lot of irons in the fire. Like, you if you don't want to watch the movie, you can read the
yeah,
book. I,
or
I
if
love
one
that.
don't stick, maybe
Um,
this will.
exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's so cool. So it was one of those ideas, one of the pitches that
uh,
won with the film fund, or is this
it
something
was
separate?
one that it was actually one of the first few that I've submitted that was nominated, but that didn't win.
Okay.
Um,
Gotcha. Gotcha.
but the
Gotcha.
other two uh, that did win are in production. I would say they're slowly with
Oh, awesome.
me having a day job, the other guys having day jobs. It's
Yeah.
hard to get time to actually
Hmm.
get out there, but it's
Yeah.
it's coming to terms to some extent,
Oh yeah.
and yeah, I got more to submit to you guys. I'm just waiting for the
Yeah.
moment.
Sure. What you got a lot on your plate. Um, Tell us a little bit about your pitches if you can.
Uh,
What are they about?
well, what? Hmm. I don't want to give too much out there.
You don't have to give. You can give as much away as you want. Sometimes we read the actual pitches. Other times we keep them a secret out of respect for you and your ideas.
Hmm.
Um, you could tell us, as much or as little as you want about them.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you about one that I I believe I submitted, but I didn't win for, which is another one that I'm.
Okay.
Well, nah, I might as well go into the what I did win because that's what people are listening. um,
Sure.
um, one of which is I wanted to get into the mindset of just what do you call it? Just spontaneity, to be spontaneous, to or however James Joyce would call it, spontaneous thought or stream of
Hmm.
consciousness. And I wanted to zero in on that, on in the environment of a man of details, so a detective. So if you had the stream of consciousness brought into that environment for a man who's looking for details, you got confusion, chaos, all of that just bombarding him. So you got a man in a world of confusion who's focused on details. And the details
Hmm.
themselves are little atoms that don't match up to something, they don't make something. So you got a guy trying to figure out what it is. It's a detective, and throughout the process of trying to figure out a miscellaneous case or a crime or whatever petty crime is going on, his world just kind of assimilates into the confusion of the case. So I don't
Hmm.
know. I'm trying to make it too complicated, but it's
Sure.
I always liked detective fiction. I'm a big fan
Hmm.
of film noir,
Okay.
um, neo noirs, um, and I thought about taking something like the idea of James Joyce's Ulysses and bringing that into like a just tiny environment with a detective and seeing what
Hmm.
happens, basically.
Yeah.
And I have little
Awesome.
ideas and tidbits and things to put in there. Like one idea would be each time he shows up to a case or what do you call it, a crime scene, he'd arrive in some means of transportation, either a bicycle or a car or a canoe. And each time upon leaving the scene, there'd be some sort of chaos among the little 2 5 minute scene. He'd go and try and find his bike or his canoe or whatever, and it'd be gone. So,
Hmm.
and then he had to find some new means to get out. So he either hailed a cab, he bummed a ride, or he took some little girl's bicycle or something or other, which would then carry on to the next scene where he arrived in the same means, and it'd be continued and continued.
I
Just
got
one of
you.
those little, let's throw something, little slapstick here
Yeah,
and
a
there.
little gag. I love
Yeah.
that. I just have such a and that makes him a really three-dimensional character too, because he's not. I mean, if he's presumably the good guy, right? But then he's
Hmm.
stealing a little girl's bicycle.
he,
And I just
I,
it's like this
I had the thought
hard-boiled
that,
detective.
yeah, I had the
It's
thought
such a
that
comical image.
he's each case was the outset or the offset to something bigger. And if you
Mm,
would need to take either bum a ride or steal the girl's bicycle, it'd be you know police procedure. I need this right away. And it's like
right,
it would
right,
be allowed. But despite him
right,
being a
right, right,
good
right, right.
guy, it although the film then progresses to where you don't really quite know who he is.
Okay.
There's a 180 done near
Mm,
like the last 1/3 of the film, and it completely goes off the rails, and then it spins back around near the end, and you kind of get some closure, and then you get the biggest question in the beginning of the film answered in the last 10 seconds of the movie, and it's
mm,
all just kind of guess the whole thing was is it does it what is there what did it go one way or did it go the other? Is this all a
mm,
film? Is it all a dream? Is it all a thought? Is it all a case? Is it all nothing? And
mm.
that's what it comes to.
Hmm.
I don't know if I
And
just
now,
made it more confusing by
inspiration.
describing it.
Yeah, no, it's okay. We won't read your one sentence pitch out of respect for you and the project, but I cannot wait to get more updates on this and watch it, and then we can finally release that sentence once we premiere it on the website.
Yeah, I can't wait. And the reason why is because I hear all these horror stories of guys that have ideas, and then in the next like 2 months after they come up with
Hmm.
the idea, they see their movie on screen made by some other guy.
Yeah, you never know.
And
It's tough,
the
especially if
industry
you
is
have something
vast.
really really unique. Um,
Hmm.
you can protect it, and that's what we want to do. So that's why we have a policy in place. Definitely
Hmm.
respect that. Now, in terms of uh, highlights about your work, do you always try to like inject a little bit of comedy into it?
Lately, I have. Before, I would say the last hmm, maybe it's like 3 years ago, I was pretty much straight to the drama, to the
Hmm.
horror, to the melodrama, melancholy, all of that. Lately, since the birth of my daughter, I wanting to humor things up,
Hmm.
put a little dash of something in there to make it seem, you know, I like black comedies.
Yeah,
So
me too.
if something to the majority of the film is very dark, at least there's a little bit of splash of something you can laugh at
Yep.
that won't make it completely depressing.
Yeah, you gotta have that. Oh my god, what do they call it? Man, I really need that coffee today. That's a theme too. If you listen to these podcasts, I always say, "Oh, I haven't had my coffee yet." Ever since I moved, I dropped my coffee maker. I had a pour over coffee pot and it shattered. So I work out of a WeWork, so I rely on their coffee. Anyway, we're going off on a tangent about coffee. Um, yeah, what do they
Hey, I need
call
some
it?
more actually.
Comic relief. That's the
Right.
term. You gotta have comic relief in there. I mean, Shakespeare had it. Everybody had it. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern were in.
Hmm.
I forget which play that
Tom
is.
Stoppard.
Yeah, well, that's the
Well,
spin-off
yeah,
that
he
he
did the
did.
film.
Yeah, but
Right, he
he
wrote it.
had Shakespeare had Rosencrantz and Guildenstern in that original work, whatever it
Right.
was, as comic relief. Um, was
Hmm.
it Macbeth? Not Macbeth. Hamlet. I think it was Hamlet.
Hamlet.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So you gotta have that. I think you have to have that in there because, I mean, it you don't always need it. Like, I'm thinking of Requiem for a Dream. That movie's dark, and
It has
I
nothing to
don't think
laugh
there's.
at. Well,
I can't.
if you got dark humor,
Yeah, there's.
sense of humor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's some in there, but it just.
Like you think about the part with the author in the prison cell, Selby, Herbert Selby Jr.,
Oh,
when
true.
Marlon Wayans is mixing up the gruel.
Hmm.
I laughed at
Yeah.
that because I know who that was,
Right.
and it's like but it's all like nuance
Hmm.
humor or inside joke humor sometimes that pays off to some people. The other
Exactly.
people won't get it at all, and they'll just be depressed when leaving.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Little
Mm.
Easter eggs in there for some of the audience members who
Right,
might know
Easter
a
eggs.
little
Yeah.
something more. Um, that's awesome though. So you mentioned Ulysses. You mentioned some literature. Do you typically draw inspiration from authors and things other media that's had an effect on you?
Yes, I have before. I mean, I read Dr. Zhivago when I was younger, and for like a good period of like 3 months, I was I just had the mindset that I was a Russian, and I wanted to know how you write that Russian
Mm,
tongue, the flow of a sentence in a Russian
mm,
context, and I mean it's a beautiful book, and when I read that, it's like people say often, you read it and you get trapped inside of it, and you live it, you live
mm.
that world. So, and I've done that quite a bit with books I've read. Like lately, I'm reading James Dickey's Deliverance,
Oh, that is an
that the
amazing
movie
book.
was
I read
based
that
on.
in college for a horror film course. Actually, he was the poet laureate one year. It's this
Yeah.
beautifully written book. Which if you don't know about it and you
Hmm.
just deliver it, it's like squeal like a pig. Like how could that be beautiful? Um, but oh, I
Yeah,
love that
right.
book. I'm so glad you're reading that. Have you seen the movie before? Okay.
Countless times. I've been wanting to see it
Yeah.
more again lately because it's just, yeah,
Oh
it's a
my God.
great film.
I'm thinking back to like our discussions in that class and like there's just there's so much symbolism in that book. Like when I don't want to spoil anything for you, but
Mm,
there's this one scene where he's climbing like the side of the mountain or the terrain, and it's just like the way it's written. It's like he's having sex with the the ground or the nature, and it's man versus nature, and which is going to prevail, and it's man trying to conquer nature and the natural order of things. Oh my God, I love that book. I've been into reading a lot more lately. Like I picked up It by Stephen King. It is massive. It's over 1,000
mm.
pages, like 1,065. I'm like 200 in. Um, Yeah, literature's great. Like a lot of
Nice.
people, I think in film, I feel like a lot of people don't have an appreciation for literature, at least maybe like the casual moviegoers. Like, oh, like movies are awesome. I love movies, but
Mm.
it all starts with a written word. It all starts with that. I mean, unless, like you said, you're doing the French New Wave thing and you're just going out with the camera and shooting, but still, you have to have some semblance, some idea of what you're shooting, and that's some thought. I'm sure he wrote some stuff down. I'm just, I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, every medium is
yeah.
kind of interlinked. So I mean, storytelling is the same
Hmm.
either way you look at it. It's all based on your your ability to imagine. So same thing with a book. Same thing with the
Hmm.
ambiguity of a movie. If you think it into it, the critical thinking or whatever critical thinking, the be able to traverse the sentence or the images on screen to come to some
Hmm.
conclusion on your own based on your opinion of, well, did she marry him or did she
Right.
leave him for that reason? Same thing with all the books.
Yeah.
It's they're all interlinked, and the more appreciation you have for the one, it
Exactly.
reinforces
Exactly.
the other.
Exactly. And I think the more types of mediums you can familiarize yourself with will give you more of a language with which to discuss the mediums too. Like if you're used to reading
Mm,
literature, that's going to inform your sense of how you process just art in general, I think. And when you're looking at, especially if you're reading a book and then you're seeing the adaptation to the screen, I think that's super, it's just super interesting too, to see how these people interpret things. It's like, oh, like that's a
oh yeah.
completely different mental picture than I had in mind, or maybe it's very, very similar. So that's always super cool. Um,
I can say I've done that. When the people say the book is better than the movie,
mhm.
they always like to say that. I can
Is it The
say only
Mist?
one
That's
time
mine.
I've read a book. No, no. Well, I did enjoy the ending to
Mhm.
that movie. I haven't read the book, um, or at least Frank
Right.
Darabont's version of it. I don't know how the original book ended, but um, what I can say is though I've read the book before I saw the movie only one time,
Okay.
and that was Fight Club. And I can say that after reading the book first, then watching the movie, I
Yeah,
can say
that's
the
what I
movie
say
was
with The
better than the
Mist.
book.
I like the because just because they Stephen King has
Okay.
actually said that if he, I'm paraphrasing, I may be misquoting, but something like this. Stephen King said that he wished he thought of that ending that Frank Darabont put in his movie because it is so powerful. I don't want to spoil it because it's just when you watch it, it's like holy
Mm-hmm.
shit, like oh my god, this is crazy, um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just so emotionally jarring. The book
Oh yeah.
I don't want to spoil the ending of the book either. The book is emotionally jarring too, but just not to the degree the ending of the movie. And like actually seeing it happen, like visually, just compounds that effect
Right.
too. But that's my when I when I jumped on your sentence
Mm-hmm.
there, I was like, oh, is it The Mist? That's my one example I use of the movie version being better than the book. I haven't read Fight Club though, so maybe I'll pick that up after I'm done it. Whenever the hell I finish that, maybe by the end of the yeah.
It's a
I'm
much shorter
hoping
read. I can tell you
I go to
that.
the beach sometimes in the summer and I do a lot of reading there, so I'm hoping like I make some progress with it. I've also, speaking of being consistent with things, changed up my morning routine a little bit, and I'm trying to get up and read for an hour each morning before I do anything, um, before work. Just way to look forward to getting up and starting the day.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I'll finish it sooner than I would have otherwise.
Well, I'm the opposite. I try to at
Okay,
least get an hour
that
of
works
reading
too.
before I go to bed.
What are you reading right
Okay,
now? Anything
so
interesting?
yeah. So
Oh, Deliverance, right?
outside of Deliverance, I'm also reading. I, I have a
Good
habit
for
of
you,
actually
man.
reading like 2, 3 books at a time. I get
Yeah.
not to say that I retain it or I might retain most of it, but it's that
Hmm.
I read enough all the time. I'm reading
Okay.
The Ruined Map by Murakami. I'm sorry, no, not Murakami. Um, he worked with
Hmm. Okay.
he wrote
I'm
The
not
Woman in
familiar
the
with that.
Dunes. Um, Hiroshi Teshikahara is a
Gotcha.
Japanese director. He worked with him a lot. Oh, darn, I forget his name
That's
now.
okay.
That's right over there on my nightstand. And I'm also reading some Norman Mailer, and I'm also
Oh,
reading
okay.
Stephen King's On Writing,
What is that one about?
which I'm almost done with that. which is it's
Okay.
more of a an essay on
Huh.
his ability to write, how he writes, what he does when he writes, how he prepares to write,
Okay.
and his because he was an English teacher, and he goes into basically
Hmm.
his methodology on writing and the do's and don'ts, what he likes, what he prefers, authors that he says made it did it right, and other authors that he
Hacks.
says they're just they're shills. Yeah, pretty much.
Hmm.
And he goes, although they're best-selling authors,
Yeah.
they do they
Huh.
do the bare minimum. So he has how would you say things to say about his ways of doing it, and
Yeah.
also he gives you a crash course on grammar and things like that, and how to make a perfect sentence. If there's too much filler, don't be
Hmm.
uh, don't be discouraged to cut it in half,
Yeah.
reword it. You don't need a long
I'm gonna
sentence
check
to
that out
say
for
one
sure.
thing.
Either that
I mean,
or
it's
Fight
really
Club's gonna be my
insightful.
next book.
And
'Cause I love. I mean, I haven't read a ton of Stephen King, but from what I have so far, I really like him as an author.
mm, I've been tempted to read it, but I mean,
Yeah.
I went through reading very long books, and I don't want to. I mean, although I've seen
Hmm.
the movie, I've seen part one, and then I've seen the original with Tim
Yeah.
Curry, and it's
See,
like,
I'm
do I
waiting
want to
on. I
jump
haven't
into the
seen either
book? I know there's
movie.
a lot more in it.
Um,
It's just,
so I want to wait until I finish the book to delve into that world and see how they adapted it. I've heard they're pretty good.
mm,
Um, but yeah, part of the reason I got it was because I was in the bookstore. It was between that and Mr. Mercedes, and the guy in the bookstore goes, "Oh yeah, everybody." I think I probably said like, "Oh my god, this book's huge." And he goes, "Yeah, everybody always comes in and says, why is this book so big? Oh my god!" And I was like, "Well, that's a challenge. I need to, I need to read this now." But that's awesome. I'm nerding out on books again. There was a time
mm,
where I wasn't reading a lot, and I was an English major, and so we would read like 10 books or so a semester, maybe more sometimes, depending what the course load was. And I just got done with that. I was like, oh, I don't want to read anymore. But falling in love with reading again, which I think is just going to help me as a storyteller and a writer. I'm sure it's helped you too.
mm-hmm. Yes, but
Mm,
I mean, I used to read when I was so much when I was younger,
mm,
but equal part, I watch a lot of films. Um, just last night, I was watching
okay.
Stormy Monday. It's a neo noir from the '80s.
Oh yeah.
Sean Bean, Tommy Lee Jones, Sting. Um, yeah.
Mm,
So I mean, I try and watch as many films as I
yeah.
can. Oftentimes, though, I
Sure.
watch half of it because it's too late at night. I don't start a movie
Mm,
until too late, and then I watch half of it, and I watch the rest the next night. Um, but yeah, you can understand. You
yeah.
don't need. I mean,
I mean, that's what
you don't need
Tarantino said.
film
He
school
said his
if you
famous
know good
quote, "I didn't go
films,
to film school. I went to
and
films."
if you right,
Mm,
right, yeah, and there's so many out there. You got uh, each genre. You got different
yeah.
ethnicity
And a
directors. You
great
got
not that we have a
Japanese
sponsor,
cinema,
but
American cinema.
at least for
I
the
mean,
podcast. But I love the Criterion Collection for that. I just watched Seven Samurai recently, and it was long. It was
mm,
like 4 hours or something crazy, but it was so good.
nice,
I think what Kira Kurosawa. Oh my god, just like
yeah,
it reminds me of it because, which is funny, but completely different genres. But it reminds me of it because he spends so much time in the first chunk of that movie just doing character development and setting up the characters and the story and the exposition of everything. And that's exactly what it is. I mean, I'm only, you know, 20% in through it, but we're learning about these characters and really not too much
hmm
has happened yet. But he's taking his time and he's really setting the stage. And it's teaching me a lot about pacing. Everyone, I hate TikTok. People have told me, oh, you have to be on TikTok, especially as a
mm,
business owner. Like, oh, you need to be on TikTok. It's like, well, I hate TikTok, and a lot of my customer, call it a customer
I
segment,
agree.
call it a target audience, um, they hate TikTok too. Like filmmakers don't really. I mean, I'm sure there are film channels on TikTok, and I'm sure there's an audience out there who uses TikTok, and they have millions of views and they're cool camera things. But I don't know. I
Hmm
I like long form better, and that's which is ironic because the film fund's all about short films But um, anyway, I just yeah.
Well, just like Warhol said, everybody will have their 15 minutes.
Hmm.
So TikTok is just that venue that's given that truth, and
Yeah.
I don't, outside of TikTok, I don't
Yeah.
think anyone else would give their 15 minutes unless they try to get
Yeah.
on
I'm
the
sure
news
there's
by
great
doing something
content on
stupid,
there, but
Other
so
than
much
that,
of it is
TikTok's the
just,
venue for that.
you know,
So,
people dancing.
hmm
Attractive people dancing. I'll just call it that.
oh, yeah.
Anyway, back to film. We're talking
Right.
about pacing. You were saying
True.
your projects are currently in production, right?
Yeah. I would say that
Mm-hmm.
um, to some degree they are. I mean, I have uh, my main actor
Mm-hmm.
waiting on him. He's got a full time job. So
Oh, cool.
I've also maybe have probably recruited a couple more people to as extras. So and but I would
Oh,
say
yeah.
the scripts, the idea is almost fully formed, and
Mm-hmm.
all the little tidbit
Mm-hmm.
comic reliefs bits, all that stuff is kind of put together.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a full scope going into it, what we're going to do, and the although the other idea, I mean, I did win twice. The other idea
Mm-hmm.
is wouldn't say it's on the back burner, but I mean, I do think about it occasionally, and I just I have this
Oh, that's so
lately. I have
cool.
this habit of
I do
just
that with emails too
texting
sometimes.
myself to my email, little notes, self tech notes. Yeah, and I've been doing it since last year, and I just been it strays from, oh, I remember I'm going to add that to that film, so I just send a little text myself, and then it just continues, and then months go by, and it's like, for some utter reason, like, 1 in the morning I wrote a poem to send
Mm-hmm.
myself, and then the following day it's like it's an angry rant about something I saw on TV, and then it continues, and then a month goes by, it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to add that to that movie, and I send it to myself, and so I have to fling through all the text and find that
Mm-hmm.
one day of that month and say, okay, all right, yeah, okay, I got to take that out, put that here. That's part of that project. Um, but besides the two that I did
Mm-hmm.
win, I'm also working on the one that I had said that I was nominated
Cool.
for before. That one has
Mm-hmm.
actually got a lot more going for it as far as the work I put into it, I would say. And
Yeah. Got a lot on your
again,
plate.
I'm trying to get those done as soon as I can.
Sure.
And
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine.
yeah,
Well, I can't imagine.
uh,
I'd be like,
with the
obviously,
exception
I
of having a
had
day
day
job,
jobs
which is
before.
demanding
Um,
lately.
yeah, it's a
So,
tough. Like I remember trying to
yeah.
work on the film fund when I had my day job. I worked at a video agency, marketing agency. I don't even know what to call it. They try to do everything. Um, it's just so much, you gotta find time, and sometimes you just get burnt out. That's part of the book I'm writing. Um, and it just we're going all over the place with this conversation. We were talking about
hmm
film school earlier. I know you did not go to film school. Have you taken any kind of film courses, or are you completely self-taught?
Uh, let's see. I don't recall when I was younger. I don't think I
Mm-hmm.
did anything like that. I mean, I took creative writing in school.
Mm-hmm. What'd
And
you go to school for?
well, I mean, college. It was.
Yeah.
I only went for like a few months.
Okay.
Paying my own way. Couldn't
Yeah.
do it. It's a full time
Sure.
job, so stuck with the job.
Mm-hmm.
But I went for journalism a little bit,
Okay.
and then photography, and let's see, that's basically about it. I was going to get into more, but it was so early
Mm-hmm.
on. Had a full time job, didn't have enough time to
Yeah.
think about what my major
You can
would
only
be,
do
or
so much.
yeah, and but then all throughout that period, just watching movies,
Mm-hmm.
which is my film school. So, and I can't say that I've watched some epics. I've gone to the extent of watching one of my favorite films that I've seen quite a few times is Hard to Be a God. I don't know if you heard of that one.
I haven't.
It's a Russian film. Um, the director had finished it like 15 odd years ago, but had died, and then his wife and son took all the footage and finally compiled it into the completed
Oh wow.
piece, and they released it maybe like five years ago or so. I
Huh.
don't know. It's called Hard to Be a God, and it's like a 5 hour film.
Oh
I've
wow.
watched that 4 times because it is
Holy crap.
so engrossing. And
I'm gonna write that one down.
if the Stratogatskis, Boris Stratogatsky, if I'm pronouncing that wrong, maybe it's based on a book that he wrote, but it's black and white, drenched in rain, mud, feces, vomit. It's medieval times. It's a sci-fi flick, and that taught me when I watched it the power of just roaming.
Hmm.
When you have a camera, you have actors, and you roam. The power of when you got the scenery. I mean, they built sets, but a lot of it just looks, we showed up and it was already there,
Mm-hmm.
natural. And the power of just roaming. Yeah, it almost seems as if they were improvising a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure maybe they were to a degree, but there was a script. And just fixating on one thing, and it's like the quintessence of stream of
Hmm.
consciousness, but in a sci-fi flick based in the medieval
That
times
sounds so interesting.
and before the Dark
And
Ages,
what's the
or
title
in the
again?
Dark Ages. It's called Hard to Be a
Hard to
God.
be a god. Definitely gonna check that one out.
Yes.
How do you find
Oh,
your films generally?
um. Well, a lot of it, it's like a hopscotch. You know, of one person, and then you watch their filmography, and then you just like let's say genres. It's a film noir. So back when I was much younger, I had this little book. It's just like the history of film noirs with all
Oh,
the
cool.
films, and I would go about because I used to. When I lived at home with my
Mm-hmm.
folks, and I had Turner Classic Movies. I'd watch film noirs
Mm-hmm.
constantly, and so I'd mark off in the book each one I'd watch, and from there on, it's like, oh, that director did something other
Right.
than film noir, so I'd watch his other stuff, and then oh, I like that actor Ed Begley Jr. What he was he into, and then
Mm-hmm.
from there on, I just then the Criterion came about, so
Yeah.
I understand when you're going with there. They put out
Mm-hmm.
so much good stuff and things you would never have heard of. I mean, Bergman, Fellini. I love Eight and a
Mm-hmm.
Half.
It's one of my
I
favorites.
watched that quite often when I was younger. And when they do Japanese cinema, it's like House or Hausu.
I have that on my
I don't know
list.
if
I
you ever
haven't
heard of
watched
that
it yet
one.
though.
It
Yeah.
is bonkers. It's so good. Um, and then in Teshigahara, they did this set, and Woman in the Dunes is just so oh, it's ambiguous. You don't quite know. It's like, why would a man act this way? Why would he just get out? Why would he just try and figure? These are
Mm-hmm.
things to look into, and
Mm-hmm.
Criterion's a good way to start. And also, what do you call it? I was on this
Oh yeah,
Letterbox
Letterbox is
or
great.
something. I think it's called. Yeah, I've seen a lot of
Cool.
recommendations on there. But oh no, I mean, I have my own
Mm-hmm.
collection films, and it's just oh, and another film I would watch. Well, the one film I've watched in a row 3 times was Midnight
Okay.
Cowboy, and that was the film that I've watched
Mm-hmm.
when I was really young. My grandmother suggested I watch Midnight Express. She goes, "Oh, it's a good film." And then I thought she said Midnight Cowboy because I saw
Right,
it in the
right.
same wherever I got it, and I
Is that the one
watched
with
that.
Travolta?
She wanted me to watch this
No, that's Urban. That's Urban Cowboy.
Cowboy. John, yeah, yeah. Midnight Cowboys.
Right,
John
right, right.
Voight and Dustin Hoffman. It's yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Buck goes to New York as a male male prostitute.
A little
But
different than Urban Cowboy.
oh, and I watched that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, much better, I would say. Um, so I watched that
Wow.
twice in one night, and the following night I watched it again, and that just revitalized my idea
Mm.
of what film could be. And I found the book. I found out it was based on a book. I got the book, read the book, then I watched the movie again, and it's like, yeah,
That's awesome.
I want to be a film director. I want to
And
be
how
in
old were you when
movies.
you watched that
Hmm.
and read the book?
Oh, I was probably
Okay.
13,
It's definitely
14.
still formative.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, I was, yeah, I was
Yeah.
watching things really out there when I was younger, and things of which it's like, Like I
Mm-hmm.
watched Seven Samurai. I was really young. Um, that just, but growing up, my favorite films when I was really young, anything
Mm-hmm.
Steven Seagal,
Mm-hmm.
Commando, Predator.
Yeah.
I love. That's what I grew up on. And then as soon as I got into that, I broke that barrier and
Mm-hmm.
got into the more obscure stuff and the more mainstream art house whatnot. That
Mm-hmm.
just
I love that.
carried me the rest of the way.
So you consume a lot of media.
Mm.
Um, it seems. Is that something you would give as advice to our community of filmmakers? Just consume like a lot of stuff? No.
Uh, no, no, definitely not. I would say,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it doesn't hurt, but sometimes it does. If you consume as more, if you consume too much, it's just you get engrossed in it. And well, my problem is personal. It's like if I
Mm-hmm.
watch too much, I don't have enough time to write. If I watch too much, it just
Yeah.
you know muddles the brain. It's like how can I oh, I like that movie, but I
Yeah.
also like that movie. Let's just blend genres. Like, I mean, you can, it's possible, but if you just continue and continue, it muddles the brain, and you got to have
Mm-hmm.
some of your own original imagination at times too. I'm not saying that. Oh, I love films, so I went
Right.
into films, so all I can do is remakes. I got an industry contract, and I make the greatest
Yeah.
remakes ever. It's like you're a hack. I understand the need to at some point. Films that were under the radar that didn't make box office
Mm-hmm.
records. Those are worthy of remakes, but
No.
you can't remake everything. Um, but to each his own. Really, if you can withstand watching as many films as you can, and then still have the time to, or if you
Mm-hmm.
don't write and you just like movies, just go and watch movies. But I would say
I think that's
you
good
got to
advice because
portion it
you
out.
hear a lot. Oh, watch as much as you can, but practically, if you watch as much as you can, you're right. You don't have any time to create anything of your own, or what you do create is going to be too confusing.
But then you got people like Right, but then you
Yeah.
got people like Tarantino who, before making films,
Mm-hmm.
all he did was watch films. If you have
Yeah.
a period in your life where you can
Mm-hmm.
do that, go for it. I mean, if you work in a video store, that was
Yeah.
that man's heaven. So, yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there are times that you can, and times that you buckle down if that's what you want to do, and give it a pause
Yeah.
and think. Is this my imagination, or is this mirrored the
Exactly.
imagination of
Exactly.
the films
Or
I've
just
just watched?
regurgitating.
Do I have
Mm-hmm.
any
Any
original
other advice
voice?
you'd give out there?
I would say always write. If it's,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it helped for me a little bit with my text notes to just write, to just find find that window to whatever time of night it is, and then you just, oh, I had an idea, and you start texting, you start writing, and then once you start
Mm-hmm.
writing, it's like much like a car. It's like when you get into that gear and you can just go, and it's like you caught the breeze. You got it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the greatest thing when you can do that, and you don't think about, well, I got to get to bed or I got to get there. It's you're gonna continue writing till you're done,
Mm-hmm.
and even Stephen King said it in his book that I'm reading. Is always write, at least write something. I mean, it's not the same as thinking. Oh, think about what you're going
Mm-hmm.
to write. Actually, put it down on paper. Because when it's
Yeah.
down on paper, God forbid you forget the idea and you think of something else and you start writing something. You go, oh, I remember I had that idea last week. What was it again? At least get it on
Mm-hmm.
paper. Go back, curry comb,
Yep.
just write.
And it can be terrible. You can write something. That's why they call them rough drafts. Like
Mm,
just get it out there and then revise it. They say writing is rewriting. That was always a big thing we learned in our
mm,
creative writing courses. Writing is and I think it was it Hemingway who wrote drunk, edited sober.
yeah, yeah, it was him.
You know, not advocating alcoholism.
Or Hunter S.
Um,
Thompson, but I think he was always
yeah,
drunk.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love Hunter S. Thompson's work though. He's a great story called the Kentucky Derby is Decadent and Depraved. If anyone is a fan of Hunter S. Thompson out there, check that one out. Anything else? We're gonna do a plug question here, Miles. What are you already said this in the beginning of the episode, but what are some of your favorite things about the Film Fund?
Well, actually, I would say it's more of the accessibility, the fact
Okay.
that it was so easy to find, and just the way you navigate your site is just so. accessible. It's easy. It's easy to get things, and plus it's simple. If you got a pitch and you meet your requirements, how your sentence pitch, and it works if you can make those all come together. But one question I had about that though,
Sure.
which is, um, I know it's all about what do you got, put it in here, we'll judge it. But is there besides just a good pitch,
Hmm.
what are you looking for in people's ideas?
Yeah. So that's a great
I
question.
mean,
And
I know it's like variety or genre is
mhm,
all, it don't matter, but it's
right.
like, is it the originality of the pitch, or is it just do you you meet the standards of the sentence pitch,
What
or
we
what is it?
really, when it comes down to when we have to make these tough decisions in judging, the thing we really look for the most is okay, what is the conflict in this story, and what are the stakes in this pitch?
Hmm.
So if you have a what we call a really compelling premise is, okay, what is this conflict? How unique is it? How creative is it? How original is it? We want original stuff. Um, and how compelling is it? Meaning, how strong is that sense of conflict? What are the stakes of this story? What is there um, to lose if this happens this way or if that happens this way? So we're really looking for. That's how I was taught as a writer in my creative writing program. Um, stakes and conflict are really what drive a story forward. So that's what we look for. And I can send
Okay.
you. There's a if you want to send me an email, and this is on our blog and not our blog, our Learn page. We rebranded it to Learn.
Hmm.
There are a few posts on like how to get funding from the film fund, or I forget what they're called. It's like how winner Don Finelli, he did Sunday Dinner, how his pitch
Hmm.
is really an amazing example of what we're looking for because it gets conflict across in such a succinct way using such powerful words and descriptions. That's an example I like to point to. So in the show notes of this episode, we'll actually post those resources on what we look for and how to make your pitch stronger. But yeah, I would say
Oh, okay.
shortly or concisely, stakes and conflict, which sounds like some kind of restaurant. But
No, that's helpful. I mean, yeah, if you could put all that in one sentence, I mean, it's not hard, but if you can put all that in one sentence, yeah,
mhm.
you can sum it all up.
Yep, sweet, Miles. Yeah, I know you got a lot on your plate. My last question, as always, for all our guests, is what's next for you?
Um, Completing the script. It's it's uh, it's in a pretty good stage on the draft and completing it, and from there I find uh, other
Hmm.
contests, which people talk about blacklist, or I think it's
Yep,
blacklist, where you know whether it's a scam or not, whether the people are
I've submitted a
legitimate, whether you
blacklist
can or
to get
can't.
coverage.
You
Hmm.
did, okay, all right. So things like that. I want then I'm starting to reconsider it even as I'm talking to you. It's like just finish the script and go out and
Yeah,
film it. I think I just
this
go
is
out
a
and film
feature
it.
script you're talking
You
about.
know,
Hmm.
yes, it's one of the first ideas I submitted that I was
Okay.
nominated for. I've actually acquired recently a full size anatomical university
Oh my god,
skeleton for the film.
that's so cool.
So I got props. I got some people on board possibly, and I think what we're gonna do first, we're gonna do a Kickstarter trailer
Okay.
promo, get that up on Kickstarter, and make the film. See what further funding we can get through that, or maybe GoFundMe. I'm
Hmm.
not sure, but we're gonna make a trailer, get that up, and make the film.
Love it. Super exciting.
That's what's next.
Miles, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. Do you have social media channels we can check you out on?
I do not. I'm
Okay,
not really much of
no
a social
worries.
media
We'll
guy.
post it on our social media. We are on Instagram at the Film Fund, Facebook at Film Fund Co., Twitter simply Film Fund, and we're on LinkedIn, the Film Fund. So I want to remind everyone that we're in the judging period right now for our most recent contest, but we will be opening again for entries soon. So check out that website at thefilmfund.co for the most up-to-date information. Sign up for our email newsletter to check out our prizes and up-to-date sponsors for prizes. And check out our blog at blog.thefilmfund.co. It's more focused on news happening with the Film Fund, our sister company, FF Branded, and everything great in the industry. Check out our Learn page for filmmaking and producing tips, and follow us on social to keep up to date. We have an ebook on our resources page as well. Check that out, The Ultimate Guide to Pre-Production. So if you have no idea how to write a script or budget a script or hire a cast and crew or schedule or do anything, it all comes down to pre-production. That's how you get things moving. Check that out. Um, I'm running through this outro because we have a couple minutes left before our time limit. Miles, I want to thank you again. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Just besides the glare, I don't know if you can see, but Fu Manchu for mayor. It's Christopher Lee as
Okay.
Fu Manchu.
Oh man.
It's
Oh,
my
you can see.
darn glare.
There you go.
There you go.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
That's about it. But thanks for having me. I
Thanks so
appreciate
much,
it.
Miles.
This is fun.
I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody.